takes place in the boardroom of the factory, which was a place that I saw as a kind of the remnants of a sort of failed hierarchy somehow that had collapsed because the factory was taken into receivership and shut down within a moment's notice, really. I think there's something really interesting about the cities of Sheffield, Detroit and Stoke-on-Trent. So Detroit is called the Motor City, so it's named after its industry. Sheffield, where I come from, is called the Steel City, named after its industry, and Stoke-on-Trent is called the Potteries, named after its industry. Dancing in the Boardroom, Turning My Heartbeat Up is a film that I made in 2013, which is the starting point which generated the work that's come after the other two pieces that are shown in the exhibition. That film was made in the abandoned Spode factory in Stoke-on-Trent in the UK. When we got there and started working there, that was about 5 years later. It was a really weird place because it was literally like people had just been marched off the site, so it was just left with, you know, half-drunk cups of tea with mould on the top, people's sweaters over the backs of chairs. You know, really in the middle of doing something, the factory stopped. It's the last sort of 10 years, really. It's really recent that Stoke's been ruined. So it's so terrible. Stoke-on-Trent was sort of synonymous with this underground music movement called Northern Soul that kind of idolises failed soul music that was made sort of after or around the same time as Motown and kind of followed the similar kind of principles, tried to get a similar kind of sound, but they were commercial failures in the US. They were largely made in the industrial part of America. This underground movement started to build momentum in the late to mid-60s, but it really came to its fore in the 1970s. And it's called Northern Soul because most of the clubs were located in the north of England, not in the Northern America, but Northern England. So hence Northern Soul. It's a sort of predominantly working class phenomenon. They often worked in really mundane jobs, rather like the kind of job that you might have at a factory such as Spode. The dances used to start at about midnight and they'd go on all night till about 8 o'clock the following morning. Quite similar, I think, in some ways to the rave culture. There's a sort of similar sort of thing, but it was about 20 years earlier. Eventually what I decided to do was kind of create a Northern Soul event in the boardroom of the factory. So I invited a Northern Soul DJ and 2 Northern Soul dancers. They're dancers from that original era. So they danced for me for the whole day in this freezing cold boardroom at the factory, and I filmed it. So that was the sort of starting point for this whole process, this interest in post-industrial ruins, and all those kind of elements come together for me in that film. After I'd made that film, I began to think about Detroit because it sort of seemed obvious to me that that would be the next step. Initially I really wanted to come and visit Detroit, but I couldn't afford to come here. So I kept thinking about how I could actually start to research and look into the city. And I started looking around using the internet. I got really interested in just virtually walking all the way around Brush Park and just trying to get my head around what Brush Park was. There was one route that was really interesting to me, which went from the junction of Alfred Street and Boardroom Street, and it goes all the way through with a little kind of zigzag in it in the middle and ends up at the Masonic Temple on Temple Street. Having done that little walk and thinking, I think I'm starting to get my head around Detroit a little bit, I decided to make a drawing of it, which is in the exhibition, which is called From Alfred Street to Temple Street. It's a 30-foot long drawing, very narrow drawing, that takes the form of a scroll. It's kind of me trying to get to grips with what I think Detroit is from the UK. So I'm sitting in my studio in the UK making this drawing. It references Ed Ruscha's iconic artist book, Every Building on Sunset Boulevard. I was looking at that at the same time I started to make the drawing. And originally I thought I'd make a kind of concertina book out of it, but eventually it works much better as a very, very long scroll. And then during that period of time, I managed to raise the funds to come to Detroit, which was fantastic. So in August 2015, I came and visited the city for the first time. I managed to get together a small group of people to come and dance for me down the route that I'd drawn. And they danced to the song Dancing in the Street by Martha Reeves and the Vandellas while wearing headphones. And the subsequent film is also shown in the exhibition, and that's called Dancing in the Street. But you don't hear the song on the soundtrack at all. All you hear is the sound of them dancing down the street and the sound of birds and cars and wind and insects and things like that. And so those are the three pieces of work in the show at MOCAD. What we've got in the gallery space is a set of 12 empty plates. I'm excited to be coming back again in March 2016 to undertake a residency with the organisation Spread Art. While I'm in the UK, I'm going to make a 12-piece dinner service called the Detroit Dinner Service, which uses the drawing From Alfred Street to Temple Street and takes the images of that drawing and then applies them to the surface of a dinner service, the plates and the bowls and so on. This dinner service will then be used in an event that I'm planning, which I really want to hold in the Masonic Temple if possible, where I'll invite 12 women who I find inspirational from the Detroit area. And the reason for choosing the Masonic Temple is because within the Masonic Temple are a series of Masonic lodges, which for me symbolise a kind of closed, secretive male society that is often connected to economics and industry, and I'm really interested in questioning all of that, especially in light of the position that Detroit's in at the moment, and especially in light of the city that I come from, which has a similar kind of set of circumstances, and Stoke-on-Trent just the same. After that meal has happened, we'll replace the plain dinner service in the gallery with the Detroit dinner service with the drawing on the surface of it.